Well, good morning, guys. I just want to say thanks for coming out, and more importantly, I think thank you for being willing to share your story. Right? It's the real deal. Um, I think it's an excellent path to walk down, and an amazing testament to recovery and family and the healing and the development of that family. And when I think about it, I think maybe what would it look like, Carmen? Maybe what was it like leading up, before when Tim was out on his terror, and you and your family were coming together to, you know, have an intervention on him. What was that like?
It was a really stressful time, really high anxiety, high level of stress. When my dad showed up at my house in Golden with my nephew, with Tim's son, and saying that he was scared to go back home because of Tim's behavior, we were just at a point that we didn't know what to do anymore. And I think I was just, I knew the TV show Canadian Intervention, and I thought I'd apply for it. I didn't think that we'd actually get on the show. And I remember telling my dad that I applied for it, and he's like, "Oh, that's pointless. That's not going to work." And, they called back a couple of days later, and it happened, and we were all grateful for it.
Amazing. You think about the serendipity of times and everything lining up to happen along the path, and yeah, what are the odds? One in probably a million across Canada. They picked you.
Yeah, and that's what my dad was saying too. There's so many people, like, they're not going to pick us. And I was just like, well, I was thinking, like, maybe selfish reasons even for myself, thinking like, at least I tried everything. Like, this was the last thing. I remember Tim reaching out for help and wanting me to get like applications for treatment centers and saying he was ready and stuff, and me printing off those applications, but never went through. And me calling intervention was like, at least I can say I tried everything. We tried everything to get him help.
Totally. You said selfish. It's kind of interesting. What made you feel it was selfish for you?
Just because I was in active addiction myself, and now I had my dad and my nephew in my space, kind of messing things up for my life. Like, I was on my own, I had my own space, I was doing what I was doing, and then all of a sudden I had responsibilities at my house. And
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess that. I guess when we look at things and we think about that impact of the addict in our lives, and how much it pours over into so many other areas of our life. What about you, Tim? What was it like when they popped the intervention on you?
It was a surprise. They had a good tactic for it. They got my first coach, who was like a mentor for me in my life, and we kind of split ways through my addiction. And he moved to Las Vegas, and he sort of knew what was going on with me just from me not being involved in my sport no more, and kind of just fell off the scene completely. And they reached out to him and had him involved in it. And he told me there was a small film crew down in Vegas that were doing, like, they just wanted to like help clear the stigma on addiction, and it was supposed to be like successful people that lost their way due to addiction, showing that like lawyers, doctors, or a Canadian mixed martial arts champion can lose their way to addiction. So I agreed to do the little film show for them. It's supposed to be just a documentary for the internet. And
just backdoored you.
Yeah, backdoored me. So I did it, and like a week or two into it, I kind of had an idea what was going on. I wasn't sold like 100%. It was kind of like surreal to be on the intervention, but I had an idea with like the amount of money they're putting into it. Didn't seem like a small time film crew stuff. But yeah, I was lost in the grips of addiction during the time, so it was all just like mind blowing and surreal for me, and I was just kind of going along with it. It was an adventure. It was like, I was getting high and drunk every day, and enjoying the benefits that came with it. And yeah, it was a shock at the end, but it wasn't a shock. Like, I kind of felt it coming, but wasn't sure. And like, I was ready for help, but like my sister said, she was sending me applications to fill out and stuff, but I just wasn't at that point to put that effort in. Instead of printing off the application and filling it out, I'd just get high and forget about it for the day. So when I heard their stories and their letters that they wrote to me, and seeing the impact that my addiction had on my family, and the help was available for me there, just all I had to do was get on a plane and go. I was at the point where I was ready, and it was a blessing, because I wasn't doing it on my own.
Yeah,
and I couldn't quit on my own. And they were giving me like, we're taking care of your son. You got such and such time to take him back, or like we're turning our backs on you. And that still wasn't enough for me to fill out the applications or to call a treatment center or to even look into what recovery was, because I had no idea what recovery was at that time. And so, yeah, it was a godsend. I got on that plane and it started my path into recovery.
Very cool, very cool. Carmen, when you think about that leading up and then going into the room to do the confrontation, was there fear, hope, hopelessness? What was that like?
I had lots of hope that Tim would get help, but at the same time, I had a lot of guilt and shame that I was hiding my addiction, lying to the producers, trying to act sober, saying that Tim's the one that needs help and everything, so I had a lot of guilt and shame, but at the same time, I was like, man, I hope this works. Just, I hope he accepts this help,
Yeah. That's pretty heavy, the guilt and shame of your own. And did your dad know how bad life was for you, or?
Yeah, he was aware of it too, and like they tried at the end of the intervention, they asked if I would accept help too, but I didn't accept the help. I wasn't ready. Like I said, I was just, Tim's the one with the problem. Tim's the one that's like, he's the one with the problem, not me.
Yeah, totally.
Even though I was probably, if not, I was doing just as much drugs and gambling as he was, if not worse, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. So what was your first stop in recovery, Tim? What did that look like?
Well, I was so far gone in my addiction and did so much damage and had such a fog in my brain. My first trip out in Vancouver to treatment is just like a blur. I was ready to accept the help, but I don't know if I was truly ready to face it, so to speak. Like, I wasn't ready when I got there. Like, I wanted to help, I wanted to get better, but I wasn't in the right mind frame, or my head was too cloudy. I was so full of anger and fear, and I didn't know how to control my emotions and my behaviors, and eventually ended up getting kicked out of treatment right away and went right back to active use.
Okay. I know around that time we got a call and they asked if we'd be interested in bringing into recovery, and we said, yeah, we'd do it. And he showed up here at Fresh Start and enrolled. What was that experience like for you showing up here in comparison?
Well, I went right back into active use and used right up until I got here. And at that point, for me, it was kind of like a do or die situation. Like, I wanted to get my son back, and I wanted to get back into the life I was living previously, like before addiction really took over. Like, I was in active addiction since I was 13, but until I got into the meth use for the last 5 years of my addiction was when it got really bad. I wanted to get back active in my sport. I wanted to be a productive member to society, but I still had that anger and that fear in me, and I wasn't fully ready. And then, like, I acted out on my behavior here and got kicked out. But in that time that I was here, I was a little bit more ready than my first crack at it. So I absorbed a little more. I was listening more at meetings, and I was ready. I was ready to start my steps and like really come into this life of recovery. But I still had that. I didn't have that emotional control over my behavior, and acted out on it and got kicked out. And like, in that time I was out, when I got kicked out, I stayed clean for 99 days, and then I had a relapse. And that last relapse that I had, that was the last time I used. And it was just like, that was my breaking point. That was my true rock bottom. Yeah. Like, being homeless, living out of a storage unit, not having my son wasn't my rock bottom. My rock bottom was when I had a little taste of recovery, and then I got back into that use again. And it was hell right away. And I just needed this thing so bad. And you guys gave me the second chance to come back, and that's when I was truly ready for it. I was a sponge. I was ready to do all the work, listen to all the suggestions, and it paid off with dividends.
Wow. That loss of hope during that relapse, Carmen, what was it like for your family in between those times when he got kicked out of treatment? What was going on for you guys there when you heard that he wasn't there anymore?
I just remember having so much, like hope and excitement, and we were so happy he was in treatment, and then getting that message from him saying I got kicked out, and it was just like disbelief and denial. And I remember phoning my dad and being like, he just messaged me. I think he got kicked out. My dad's like, no, like that can't be. And I was like, I got a message from him, like place he went to, he wasn't allowed his cell phone, so he must have got kicked out because he had his cell phone to message me. And I just remember breaking down at work and just crying and just thinking like, he's gonna die. He's gonna go back out and he's gonna die. And just that rush of just like
same kind of feeling, I bet. Like the idea that you get all this hope building up that he's somewhere safe now, and all of a sudden it's like,
yeah. Now he's in another province. Now he's in Vancouver. He's on the streets. I don't know where he's going to go. How are we going to get him back to where we are? And just like, I just remember like the feeling just rushing through my body and just like breaking down at work and crying and like, what are we going to do now?
Yeah. So you talk about that desperation, that readiness that you finally found, Tim, like, and you came back after those 99 days. I remember calling and going back and forth, and you're doing all the things that you needed to do. Coming back, being like a sponge, that readiness, that wanting, that desire, that willingness to move forward. How important is that in your path?
It's super important. I think that was the piece they talk about, the gift of desperation. I was so desperate for this thing. I was just ready and willing to do anything that was asked or suggested of me. And like, if we want this life in recovery, we have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And I just don't think I was ready to do whatever it takes before, because I wasn't ready to put my street mentality to the side. I wasn't ready to look at my behaviors and correct them. I was still in that self-will state where, I'm going to do what I want to do. Someone does something to me, I'm going to act how I know how to act. And when I came back, it was like, I'm going to look at different ways for my behavior. I'm going to stay calm and do what's asked of me. And just that gift of desperation and having that hope. And the time that I was here before I got kicked out, just from like seeing people that had similar pasts to me that have recovered and were living good lives, and people to look up to and follow their path was a big thing for me.
Yes. I find it ironic that gift of desperation, right? The duality of that piece between the family piece, the desperate, hopes of wanting to see him succeed, and now you finding that same desperate desire to succeed. Is that the time when the family starts coming back together? Is that what it looks like for you guys?
I'd say, like, the way we grew up in our family, there's so much destruction and dysfunctionality. Somehow we always managed to stick together through it. And so we were always kind of tight bonded, even through our addictions and all that stuff that happened. But I think at that point there was hope that I was going to get my life back on track and get my son back, and the family could truly start to heal at that point.
Were you feeling the same time? Like when he came back the third time to treatment, were you feeling still hope, or was it a little bit of dismay and uncertainty?
I'd seen the change in him from when he first got kicked out of Fresh Start and he came back to Golden, and he was, he had that taste of recovery and the meetings and wanted to go to meetings in Golden, and I had more hope then.
So he was staying with you in Golden at that time?
Right.
So how was that impacting your life, your addiction? What was going on for you then?
He was taking me to meetings, and we were going to meetings and stuff, and he was showing me, like telling me you got to get a sponsor and trying to show me the way, but I just wasn't ready to put the work in, like I just...
You were doing it for him?
For him, and to be honest, I wasn't able to get drugs in Golden anymore, and I used to get them sent on the bus, and the Greyhound stopped working, and I just didn't even know how to get drugs anymore, and it's just like, if I can't beat him, might as well join him.
Another serendipitous moment, eh?
Yeah.
Intervention.
Yeah.
No dope. What does life come into? Right?
Yeah, it was surreal.
So, what about your path through treatment? Let's go. You went through treatment. You did the work, developed a foundation, got some pillars. What was that rolling out for you like?
Yeah, for sure. When I came to a Fresh Start for the second time, just with that, like that gift of desperation, that hope, that willingness, being a sponge, I took everything on. Completed group, did my first set of steps with group, got a sponsor right away after I completed group, did a set of steps with him, made connections with the house with people who are my best friends now. I keep my circle small with people who are doing the work, and I got those people around me still today. And started sponsoring other men, moved into post-treatment housing, stayed connected with Fresh Start, started working here, and it got to a point where it wasn't work no more. It just became my lifestyle. And living at the post-treatment housing, having that affordable rent, and having to be accountable with the meetings and doing all that stuff, it got to the point where I wasn't just doing them because I had to, I was doing them because I wanted to. And really built that connection with my higher power once I cleared that channel and got rid of all my resentments and fear and anger and self-pity and all that stuff I was living in before, and started working on my character and continue working the steps and just taking it one day at a time, and just unfolded into this beautiful, amazing life I'm living today.
Cool. So how far after treatment did you get into recovery? When was your decision?
I think Tim had a couple years clean by then. I was living up in Edmonton, and he used to come up for visits, and he'd take me to meetings and stuff, and he introduced me to people in the fellowship that he knew up in Edmonton, and I tried going to meetings on my own and stuff, but again, like I didn't get the sponsor or do the steps and stuff like that, and I wasn't able to get any substantial amount of clean time. And Tim was up there visiting one weekend, and I was fighting with my boyfriend at the time, and my boyfriend had kicked me out, and Tim was just like, you need to make a change. Why don't you go to treatment? I can get you into treatment. And at that point, it's like, I was out stealing Cadillac converters the night before, and, I was just like, remember looking at him and saying like, but what am I going to do with my life? And he said, there's so much you can do. You can do anything. You can go back to school, get a job, get a career. And I thought, well, I might as well try it. At least I'll have somewhere to go stay for a few months, because at this time now I'm homeless, I'm going back and forth of like just staying people's couches. I didn't have anywhere to really stay when I'd fight with my boyfriend. And at that moment I was like, well, at least I'll have somewhere to stay for a few months,
Totally. How much of Tim's experience do you think played into, were you believing there was that hope in what you seen in him, or was it just a desperate move?
Oh, it was like 100% of the results I seen in Tim. Like I seen that, he had gotten his life back together, and he was working, and he was back into fighting. He had his son back living with him, and I remember thinking often, and I still think that now when I have those dark moments, like if Tim can do this, so can I.
Yeah.
He's been my rock, my driving force. It's just like I've just mimicked the things that he's done in recovery, and it's kept me sober. I remember him bringing me to Calgary. I had thought I was going to get a bed right away, but it turned out that I had to wait a bit, so I was staying with him, and he took me to meetings. I told me to get a sponsor, so I got a sponsor. He told me to start working the steps, so I started working the steps, and told me to get involved in service work, so I got involved in service work. I just took those suggestions that he gave me, and I'm still sober today.
Excellent. So what was it like for you to go into treatment? Did you get kicked out a couple times?
No, I felt like leaving a couple times. It was hard. It was hard in the beginning, like just going from being able to do whatever you want and, just leaving this life to going into somewhere that's structured and you have your day planned out and you got to wake up for chores and you got to do this and got to do that. I wasn't used to that. I was used to just falling asleep wherever I fell asleep and sleeping as long as I wanted to, and now I got to be up at a certain time. So in that aspect, it was a little bit of getting used to.
So in the background, what's going on with your dad and your son, Tim, during this time when you're helping your sister? And I think your dad was living with you.
Yeah, we're all together at this time.
Yeah,
we're in Fresh Start post-treatment housing, and it was me, my dad, my son, and my sister. Yeah, until she got into treatment, and then she went to treatment, and then came back and stayed with us for a bit, and then we all moved into a house together.
Nice. So, in the bigger picture of things, like what has recovery done for you, your family, going from that dysfunctional kind of history you had, what does it look like now?
A lot more serenity, functional, being present with each other in each other's lives, having someone to support each other. We can always fall back on each other when we need stuff. Like, we take care of my son together and the household, and it's just a lot more functional, and it's just 10 times better life living in recovery than active addiction, obviously. And we're just ready to take on whatever comes our way, and just have a clear mind about things. There's no more anger and fighting, and I haven't put a hole in the wall for over 5 years, right? And
which is huge.
yeah, every place I lived in since I was 13 is holes in the doors, holes in the walls, and there hasn't been nothing even close to anything like that in the last 5 years. And I think the biggest thing is for my son, so he doesn't fall into that lifestyle, kind of breaking the chain. And yeah, it's just a loving, supportive home life. It's amazing. Just like everyone being clean and living in recovery, and it's hard to explain. It almost seems surreal because we lived in that active addiction for so many years, and like seeing our parents like that for so many years, and now it's just, yeah, it's surreal. I sit back and think about it sometimes, and just so blessed and grateful to have the life that I have today, and to have my family be a part of it, and it's just amazing.
Yeah. Earlier you talked about that fact of dying, that fear of Tim dying, and what does that look like for you today as far as living? What does that, thinking about the idea of living and going back to school and getting a job and having those opportunities, and those fears that you had, how have they been?
Just like night and day, Like when Tim was in active addiction, there was tons of fear around him dying, just the lifestyle that he was living, the people that he was caught up with, his mental state, that he'd get in dark moments, and like I thought he might just off himself. It's and now today to see how he's living clean and sober, and I'm just so proud of him, and in return he's able to show me the way of life, and now I'm living that way as well. And it's just, I can remember my mom when we were young, she'd always be like, you guys got to break the cycle, she was always in active addiction, and she tried getting sober. I remember going to meetings with her and stuff, but I never, even though that we grew up around fellowships and we knew where to get help, we never knew what recovery was or what those 12-step fellowships could be until Tim came to Fresh Start.
But more importantly, what about you inside? Your desire to live today, your desire to change, those fears that you talked about. What am I going to do with your life? What are you doing with your life?
I'm going to school, and I'm working here at Fresh Start now. It doesn't feel real to me sometimes too, driving here, and it's like thinking like, I can't believe I work here, like I just remember Tim coming here, and I remember coming to visit him here, and it's just like such an awesome facility. And now we're both working here, and it's just like, doesn't even really feel like it's real sometimes.
Yeah. It's because it's not. Just kidding. I was thinking about my mom's house. I had to make amends to my mom by renovating her house and fixing all the doors I put my fists through, and the walls, and all that anger that we carried through the life, right? And the idea that you're free from that anger and that fear now, and that that hope has been waved into a fire of desire. And if I got anything for you, it's just we love you. We think you're an amazing, more than an amazing story. It's an amazing facet to what recovery is, and we look forward to the greatness that you'll become, and all the dreams that you achieve. So, I think thanks for coming out and being vulnerable and sharing. It's nobody really likes to put it out there, but it's such a great story. It's such a great, like a 180-degree turn in life that just says all of a sudden it's there, it's real, and because it is real, and sometimes we just need to sit back and appreciate the fact that we've done what we need to do to get to where we need to go, and you're well on your way. So thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm always privileged to share my story, and hopefully it affects even one person out there and helps them have a belief in themselves to want to change their way. Then it's worth my time.
Nice.
Yeah, if we're able to get sober, then I think anyone can. We were quite wild. We're hardcore everyday users. Just I can't even believe that the way we used to behave and act, and we were able to get out of it. And if we're able to get out of it, I think anybody's able to get out of it.